Okay, on chapter 7 of the 5th Sacred Thing. So if you're just tuning in, you're going to have to listen to the other chapters because they all matter. That's a story for you, right? Have to know about what happened in the past, understand what's going on right now. Kind of like real life. Okay. Really, Maya thought between breaths, when you came right down to it, Madrone was as bad as the rest of them. Maya placed her left foot on the next step, paused for a moment, and then pulled herself up. She was old, but she refused to feel decrepit. I'm not in bad shape, she thought. It's just on the steps, of course. Of course, it would be her luck to live out in the end of her days in a house that rose up 3 stories above the basement, and where they had placed the kitchen on the 2nd floor to catch the light. She shifted the basket of greens to her opposite arm. We should have put it in an elevator when we were younger and rich, but no, that would have been indulgent. Wasteful of energy, politically incorrect. Laboriously, she hauled herself up another few steps. Thank goddess we at least had sense enough to put in a dishwasher. And the compost toilets, well, they were correct enough and years ahead of everyone else. But it was Madrone she was thinking about. Stop, rest, breathe, continue. Just lost my spot. How could I have done that? There it is. Just like backpacking, climbing the flanks of some mountain, looking for visions or trouble. 3 long breaths, then renewed effort. That was the way to do it. The girl was just plain worn out. And that wasn't a figure of speech, she feared. Worn out like a pair of blue jeans rubbed so thin between the thighs and patched so much on the knees that there was no way to fix them anymore. Used up, ready to be discarded. Lying in a bed for nearly a month now and still insisting, every time anyone asked, that she was fine, just fine, only needing sleep. Gratefully, Maya reached the door that led into the upstairs kitchen. She opened it and emptied her basket into the vegetable sink. After all those years, she was still pleased by the fact that her kitchen had 2 separate sinks, one for cooking and one for cleanup. She looked around the room with satisfaction. She could almost see the ghosts at the big round table in the center. Johanna expounding some educational theory, Rio stuffing cereal into a baby's mouth, Alex rolling out a pastry, and Ben cooking some elaborate Szechuan concoction, which was the baby who would only stop crying when they all sang rounds in 3-part harmony. And wasn't it Bridget who always wanted the silly one? How did it go? My mama makes counterfeit whiskey. My daddy makes counterfeit gin. My sister makes love for $10. My God, how the money rolls in. That's pretty cute. I'm gonna sing it again. My mama makes counterfeit whiskey. My dad makes counterfeit gin. My sister makes love for $10. My God, how the money rolls in. That was an old song even then, because certainly back in the 90s when Bridget was a child, $10 wouldn't have even bought even the most down-and-out hooker. Why, she remembered walking down Haight Street when she was, 17? Back in the 60s, and men would cruise by in cars and offer her 20, even back then. She had been righteously insulted, of course. She did it for free or not at all. Rolls in, my God, how the money rolls in. She was humming aloud as she washed the vegetables, chopped up an onion, and set it to simmer in a soup pot full of water. What was the tune from originally? Some of that tomato sauce would go good in the soup, and she would make Madrone eat. Oh, Bonnie lies over the ocean. That's what it was. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, to me. My Bonnie, my Johanna, my Rio, my Bridget, my bird. Stop it, she told herself. The truth is, and then she laughed, remembering how Johanna used to tease her about that verbal habit. And just what is the truth, Johanna used to say. Tell us, O wise woman, what is the truth? That was because after Maya's books became known, Johanna used to worry that she'd get above herself. But the truth was, and shut up, Johanna, she said to the air. She was worried sick. There was an expression for you. That was all they needed for her to get sick. She chopped carrots and zucchini and celery and squash. The zucchini was overproducing, as they always did, practically shouting at you as you walked by. Here, eat, please, no, take, there's plenty more, it's good for you. Take, eat, this is my body, this is my blood. Jesus is a Jewish mother. Why had she never thought of that connection before? She would have to discuss it with Sister Marie. Generations of her own Jewish mothers hung around the room as she cooked, perched precariously on light fixtures and window frames. Maya could hear them scolding her. Look how skinny that girl is. No wonder she's collapsed. Why don't you feed her? Didn't you ever tell her to slow down, get some rest? But the truth is, she thought, I do feel responsible. I let her take care of me. I should have taken care of her. I'm a spoiled old woman, and she's too good for her own good. How does a child of Rio's line turn out to be practically a saint? Although, come to think of it, maybe she simply inherited his taste for martyrdom. I'm not responsible for her, she said, partly to herself, partly to the ghosts at the table. Rio and Johanna, who gazed at her with eyes that neither blamed nor absolved. She saw them, not as the old woman and man they'd grown to be, but more like they were when they were in their early 40s, mature but still vigorous. Johanna dressed in that blue suit she always wore because she needed to address some board or committee and look respectable. Rio in his work clothes with dirt on his hands. Madrone's a grown woman, but I feel responsible, Maya admitted. Somehow she failed Johanna and Rio, failed herself. Madrone was the last. What was the word? Scion? Or did that only mean boys? The last scion of their triad, barring Bird, who could scarcely be counted on, and Maya should have looked after her better. Don't be a fool, old woman, Johanna said, but Maya brushed her away and persisted. Because if Madrone died, who was left? If Madrone herself could not survive, how could they expect that anyone would, let alone the city, a green island in a toxic sea? Maya put the kettle on. She would make tea, take some to Madrone, and leave some to placate the spirits. They preferred coffee, but that was just too bad. No one had had coffee since the uprising 20 years ago. It's not a failure of nurture I'm talking about, she said, sitting down at the table with the spirits of the dead. It's a failure of inheritance. We've passed on a world that's impossible for the best of them to live in. Was it any better for us? Rio asked. We made a life, Maya answered. We used to sit in comfortable living rooms talking about the end of the world, how the dolphins were dying in the South Atlantic and how incidents of birth defects were rising near to toxic waste dumps. Oh, I'm not saying we didn't try all those years of organizing and marching and getting arrested for causes. We did our best, but it wasn't enough. There's no child in the city who goes to bed hungry, Johanna said. There's no living soul who doesn't have a home. That's one thing we worked for. And we had a few other minor victories, Rio added. To name one, no one blew the world up in a nuclear war. Yet, Maya said. Maybe it's something connected with her having a body, Johanna said to Rio. That sudden onset of cynicism, hormones, digestion, shit like that. I'm not a cynic, Maya protested. I admit the beauty of the city. It has a beautiful beating heart. It cares for its own and for the stranger. Its streams run with clear water, and the trees that line its pathways bow under the weight of fruit anyone is free to pick. And yes, we had a hand in shaping it. But what does that mean if we can't survive? It means it existed once, Rio said, and so it is possible, undeniably possible. But that's not enough for them, the young ones, Maya said. They're different from us. They don't see the city as some precarious achievement, like attaining the summit of Kanchenjunga. To them, this is a base camp, just a starting point towards heights they have yet to reach. And it's home, all they know. They can't philosophize about its destruction and just hurl themselves in front of the avalanche. What do you think Madrone is doing? How do you account for Bird? They're preservationists, Johanna said. They have something to save. We were more arrogant. We wanted to remake the world according to our vision of what it should be. And we did it, Rio said. Partly. That's like a partly successful pregnancy, Maya said. The kettle whistled. Stop wallowing, girlfriend, Johanna said. Bring us some tea and quit feeling sorry for yourself. Maya put dried mint leaves into the Chinese pot she had bought 50 years ago on Grant Avenue. It was yellow with a curving dragon wrapped around its side. She set up cups in front of her shadowy friends. This is an early visitation, Maya said. It's not even rain return yet. El Dia de los Muertos is weeks away. Madrone's got a wedge stuck in the gates between the worlds, Rio said. So he took advantage. You seemed so lonely. I am lonely. Why shouldn't I be? You're dead. Madrone's semi-conscious. Everybody else is gone. Strike up the sad violins, Johanna said. Why don't you feel my granddaughter? Pull her back from the edge. Feed my granddaughter. Pull her back from the edge. How do I do that? Surely you must have learned something in your overlong life that it can help her choose. Choose what? Whether to live or die. Maya fixed a tray for Madrone. She spooned soup into a porcelain Japanese bowl and set out toast and butter and napkins and arose from the garden in the little Limoges vase she had bought many years ago on a trip to France. Maybe the little luxuries of life could seduce Madrone back. Or maybe Prince Charles and Lady Di could do it, their faces staring solemnly out from the surface of the bed tray. Madrone lay in Nita's big 4-poster bed. They had moved her down to the same floor as the kitchen, so Maya wouldn't have to climb so many stairs. Maya set down her carefully balanced tray. Madrone's eyes were closed. She was either asleep or determined to appear so. Where is she wandering, Maya wondered. What strange dimensions between the worlds. She looked so small, like an ant carrying a burden too heavy for her, and I ached to share it. Maya thought, but I can't. For one thing, she won't let me, and for another, she's grown beyond the stage where she can hand her burdens over to the older ones. I'm part of her burden now, and Maya suddenly wished she were light, a husk of herself, easier to carry. Or maybe I'm just too much husk already, all shell, no meat. Maybe that's why I'm not reaching her. I hold out a cartoon of myself, old and crotchety and faintly amusing, mothering her and badgering her. But that role too is just another of the disguises we all cling to. Posturing and scrambling and marshalling our achievements so as to have to look into reality's raw heart and see the wheels of the universe grinding down into dust. I know that, even if I can't seem to stop doing it. I knew it at 17, on one too many hits of that pure 1960s Owsley LSD. Far too young. I would have gone crazy for sure if Johanna hadn't come to me in the locker room and cupped her hand around my naked breast and saved me from the one thing that could cross the abyss. Touch. The touch of the heart. How can I bring that to Madrone? Madrone opened her eyes and looked up at the canopy embroidered with moons and stars. They made dancing patterns, networks of light and color impossible to translate. They merged with the crystal webs behind her eyes. She wanted to stay where pain and weariness and emotion were only twists in the kaleidoscope of light. Her work was here on this plane now. The spirit knife in her hand allowed her to change the patterns, stirring them up to fall in a new design, changing lives, changing fate, easy. She felt Maya's presence intrude on her peacefulness. The older woman's worry and fear burst around her like fireworks, exploding from a center to rain-colored stars. Madrone watched the lights dance with detached fascination. It was so unnecessary. If Maya could only understand. Sit up, Maya said. It's time you ate something. Madrone didn't really want to eat. Food took her away from the patterns, but the force of Maya's determination gripped her and propped her up. Arguing would be even more of a distraction, and while she was distracted, people would die. Maybe that didn't matter really, but then that was why she had the knife, to fight off death. She couldn't put it down. Bright sun was streaming in through the big bay windows. Nita had hung crystals on the glass, and the sunlight made rainbows dance around the room. Rainbows of light, like in the web world. And when Madrone closed her eyes, she could still see them, feed on them. They were better than bread. Maya opened a window and hung out a card on a string. What's that? Speaking was great effort. Madrone could see the words as she could see her own breath on a cold day. They wove a pattern of color and then dissolved. A sign announcing your unchanged condition, just as if you were the Queen of England, saves me running up and down the stairs 5 times a day. I'm sorry, Madrone whispered. She was sorry that Maya couldn't understand the lack of need for her fear. She was sorry that the colors around Maya's body were so disturbing she couldn't help but will the old woman away. Humph, Maya snorted. You're not sorry. If you were, you'd pull out of this half-astral state, get some food in you, and stop doing whatever it is you're doing. You would let me in. You would return to human form. I'm not doing anything. You lie. I can't see exactly what it is, but I see you doing something. Half the city has nominated you for sainthood. They leave offerings on the front steps, burn candles. Sick women claim they dream of you and wake up healed. Mothers about to give birth see your face and their wombs open. Meanwhile, you lie here, going into a decline of the worst Victorian manner. I'm just having conversations. Really, I'm fine. If you say that to me one more time, I will personally slit your throat. Madrone closed her eyes again. She wished Maya would just go away and leave her alone. Maybe if she drifted back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep on me now, young lady. I'm talking to you, and besides, you need to eat something. I'm not hungry. The hell you're not. Eat your soup. But this isn't how I want to be with her, Maya thought. She's fading away, dying, and I can't break through. I can't reach her with my anger or my love. Madrone obeyed, sipping the soup in grim and determined silence. Food was an anchor chaining her to the world. I'm going to prop it up. Lightly and only for a short time. The energy the soup brought her was a pattern as hunger was a pattern, and each disease was a pattern, as life was one and death was another, and they were all, each of them, so beautiful and complete in themselves that it took enormous will to choose one over another. She had that will, but it was flagging, and maybe that was okay. It's okay to die, she said to Maya, setting down her spoon. She said it to make the fireworks stop. but it had the opposite effect, setting them whirling and bursting around her. "No," Maya said, and burst into tears. They were great spheres of light dropping from her eyes, opening into fields of white on white, like snow falling on a glacier. "Please eat something, one more bite." "But the snow is so beautiful," Madrone said. "But the snow is cold, baby." Maya had no idea what she was talking about, but she reached forward anyway to clasp Madrone's hand. Her hand was cold. It felt like one of the flexible ice packs they used to keep in the freezer for Alex to lie on when her back gave out. Where you are is so cold." The touch of the heart, Maya thought. If Madrone could feel that, it could save her, and if not, there was truly nothing Maya could do except let her go, losing and finding and losing again, losing her. Trying to see what time it is. Kids home already? Cold was a pattern too, like a pinwheel of lace spinning in her back. And suddenly, Madrone wanted to reach for the warmth of Maya's hand. Maya's touch was a glow of fire and shattered the ice crystals around her. It was a living pattern. "Coming!"